Hey guys, Hundar here. Welcome to Talara. I have finally found a digital avatar of my beard worthy of representation, and it feels so right. Today we're talking Rift, and there's a lot of information I want to push into your brains. This is going to be a two-parter because there's obviously a lot to talk about. Basically, these two guides are going to be for anyone who's still not sure if Rift is what they're looking for. Maybe you've been hurt by MMOs before. Maybe you're worried about whether it's worth having another game to compete with your playtime. My character who will serve as our guide while we talk about the game is little Hundar the Dwarf and his buddy Lolcat. There are a lot of rad choices about what to play in this game, but who would I be if I turned down the opportunity to play a Dwarven Beastmaster? So, with no further ado, let me fill you in on the story thus far. Long, long ago in the way before, a group of 5 gods known as the Vigil created the world of Talara from a material known as the Source Stone. They used the elemental powers to build all things and give life to the mortal races, and created the balance of life and death in the world. But as usual, some assholes always have to show up to crash the party, and the Bloodstorm is no exception. A roving pack of devourers, the Bloodstorm was comprised of 6 elemental gods who roamed the cosmos, ripping worlds apart to feed upon the power of the Source Stones. Led by Regulos, the dragon god of the Plane of Death, they made war upon the races of Talara and brought the chaos of the elements crashing down on all the Vigil had wrought. Through the combined efforts of all, the dragon gods were imprisoned in their planes, and the gods of the Vigil constructed a ward to shield Talara from their influence. But the damage was done and unrest spread across the land. Dragon cults formed to worship the evil gods, while a covenant of dragon slayers vowed to preserve the order. Where we are now, the ward's power is slipping, Regulos has been pulled back into Talara, and the other elemental planes are breaking through, a la the rifts of the game's namesake. And the gods of the Vigil, once ever present, have gone silent. So, 2 great groups have stepped forward to the task at hand. The Guardians are those who believe in the promise of the Vigil, that by proving themselves worthy against the dragon gods, the Vigil will return yet again. If you decide to play a Guardian, your character is actually killed by Regulos' forces and resurrected by the messengers of the Vigil. You're brought back to life as an ascendant, a being with the power of the gods at your disposal. You channel the power of multiple souls to form a deadly hand of the gods. The Defiant are those who no longer place their faith in the Vigil. They believe that the gods screwed all this up in the first place, and we can't wait around for them to clean up this mess again. Using Eth technology, they power machines with Source Stone, and have found a way to engineer Ascendants the hard way, through channeling the power of ancient souls and ripping apart living Guardians. They'll do whatever it takes to drive back the dragons, with no gods or masters to protect them. When you start a Defiant, you actually begin at the end of time, where the Guardians and Defiants have failed to fight back Regulos, and his reign over all is complete. You'll pull a quantum leap and use the Defiant technology to go back to a time when things can still be saved. Within each faction are 3 race choices currently. Let's take a look at your options. All of the racials are meant to be fairly balanced so that you shouldn't feel the need to pick a certain race to compete. Standard MMO advice applies: pick a race you won't get sick of staring at. Each of the Guardian races have put the most faith into the Vigil, but also seek redemption for the actions of their leaders. The Mythosian's king unleashed Regulos on his people, and their racial is a 20 resistance to death magic and a motivational roar, which grants the user and nearby group members a speed buff of 30% for 10 seconds, not usable in combat. The High Elves, whose leaders broke the pact with the gods and sided with the dragons, they have a racial with a 20 resistance to life magic, and probably one of the coolest racial abilities, Angelic Flight, where you don a pair of spirit wings and fly a good distance. It can't be used in combat, but it's real flight, so you can use it to cross actual holes in the earth. It's pretty awesome. Finally, the Dwarves, whose great machinery once rivaled the Defiants, but it was powered by the spirits of the dead, which is never really a good plan, and they were freed by planar energies and ravaged all of the Dwarven cities. The Dwarves get a 20 water resistance, and they can fall twice the distance of other races without getting hurt. Oh my god, they can fall off of cliffs, this is amazing! Also, it should be noted that the opening movie for the Guardians is just fucking awesome. Seriously. Defiant side, we have the Eth, who created all the badass technology. They get an earth resistance of 20, and they have agility, which increases movement speed by 70% for 15 seconds. It doesn't work in combat either, but it only affects you because you're so selfish. The Kalari are rebel jungle elves who look very different from their high elf relatives because they spent a lot of time forming pacts with powerful spirits and lesser gods back in the day. They don't get along well with the other races either. They get a fire resistance of 20 and have camouflage, which in this case means turning into a ghost fox for 30 seconds out of combat, which gives you a wider path where you won't pull aggro. Finally, the Bami are big mofos who had elemental beings as ancestors, and despite their badass reputations, are the most hospitable of the races, which means they're the first ones to let you sleep on their couch when you visit. Oh my god, it is one comfortable couch. They get an air resistance of 20 and have a crappier version of the High Elf racial, where they can leap, but they don't have pretty angel wings. But you know what? They don't need them, because they just jump, goddammit. Now for the big decision. You need to choose from one of 4 callings which you will create your custom class out of. Now the best advice I can give you with this is just to go ahead and create something, anything, because odds are good you're going to change your mind once you get out there and start seeing other people play. I started as a rogue Nightblade, and then I heard people talking about mage Stormcaller, so I re-rolled. And then pretty far into that tune I realized that there was something called a Beastmaster under the warrior options, and I had to go for that. So let me present to you now the full list available to you so that you're aware of all of the options, because I sure as hell wasn't. Warrior. We have champions, master of the two-handed weapons. We've got paladins who can use defensive shields and cast blessings. Reavers who specialize in damage over time effects from their weapons. Warlords whose buffs strengthen their allies and weaken their foes. Paragons who rock a weapon in each hand. Riftblades, who enhance their melee attacks with elemental magic for the best ranged abilities of the warrior calling. Void Knights, who are defensive warriors who absorb spells and drain their enemies' mana. And Beastmasters, because goddammit, they've got a two-hander and a big-ass combat pet. Rogues. We've got assassins, pros at stealth and poisons. Nightblades, practitioners of arcane magic as part of their rogue toolkit. Rangers, who are the traditional ranged with the pet class. Blade Dancers, whose fury powers masterful blade attacks and expert agility. Rift Stalkers, who can provide tanking support with their defensive skills and high survivability. Marksmen have the fun of a ranger without a pet to slow them down and practice hit-and-run style gunfights. Saboteurs, master of explosions and demolitions to cripple opponents and CC enemies. And bards, who support their allies with buffs, debuffs, and a little bit of healing. Also, they shoot fucking music notes at bad guys. Come on! Boom, you like clerics? We got clerics. Inquisitors mix life and death magic to debuff foes and drain mana and life. Purifiers, who keep their friends alive from diseases and poisons and have a spirit vanguard to protect them while they do so. Sentinels have strong group support with heals and buffs while functioning on tank duty. Justicar are healers who also kick ass at melee combat. Shaman use elemental forces for close combat. Wardens bring the power of stacking healing spells to keep their party alive. Druids are melee fighters who aren't afraid to murder people with fairy power, and Kabbalists rock AoE DPS with some of the strongest damage abilities of the cleric calling. Finally, stay with me now, we got the Mighty Mage. Elementalists summon minions to crush their foes. Warlocks live up to their reputation with brutal curses and dots. Pyromancers excel at ranged fire spells on single targets. Stormcallers live up to their names with spells of air and water that combine to rock you like a hurricane. Archons are support badasses who strengthen their party and unleash potent spells while they're at it. Necromancers have a skeleton pet and a bad attitude and combine well with other mage options. Dominators do scary things to fill their enemies with fear and leave them crying in a fetal position. And last but never least, the Chloromancer uses the power of plants in the natural world to heal their allies through the damage they deal. Cool. Okay, that's a lot of crazy info I just threw at you. Hopefully it sits nicely in your stomach like a big burrito without making you run for the bathroom. For part 2 of this guide, we'll go rift hunting and talk about dungeons and other things of interest, and maybe we'll take the jet skis out on the lake with a cooler of beer and have a good time. Until then, Hundar out.